Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita Shloka recitation and Mahabharata reading. This week we will recite chapters 1, 2, and 3. So it's already Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for 4 days we'll recite Bhagavad Gita's chapters 1, 2, 3. And next week again we will recite 7, 8, 9. So we'll begin now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 1. So we will only recite those shlokas which are on the screen. We have also memorized some shlokas which are outside of the book, but we will only recite those that are on the screen just for simplicity. Okay. So Bhagavad Gita 1:1. I think everyone knows this. Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? 139. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bhi bhavatyuta. With the destruction of dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. 140. अधर्माभिभवात् कृष्णा प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टासु varshneya jayate varnasankarah. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. 141. Sankaro narakayaiva kulaghnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro yesham luptapindodakakriya. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Chapter 2, Text 1. 2:1. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripayavishtam Ashrupurnakulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjun full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan Krishna spoke the following words. 2:2. श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टम् अस्वर्ग्यम् akirtikaram Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. 2-3 क्लैब्यमास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठा परन्तप. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. 2-5 गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. 2-7 कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावा पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. 2:11 श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासून् अगतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. 2:12 न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयं मतः परम्. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. 2:13 देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. 2:14 मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णा सुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्यास्तां तितिक्षस्व भारत. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. 2:15 यं हि न व्यथयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभा समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोमृतत्वाय कल्पते. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. 2:16 नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तस्त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. 2:17 अविनाशी तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशम् अव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुम् अर्हति. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. 2:18 Antavanta ime deha nityasyoktā sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmad yudhyasva bharata. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Text 219. य एनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ नाविजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge. For the self slays not, nor is slain. 220. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. 222. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. 223. नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. 224. अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यसर्वगतः स्थाणुर् अचलोऽयं सनातनः. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. 217. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्मामृतस्य च तस्माद् अपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death he is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Yeah. So after death, one is sure to take birth again. I made a mistake. 240. नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. 241. व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिर् एकेहा कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. 242 and 43. यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादारताः पार्थ नान्यद् अस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपरा जन्मकर्म फलप्रदां क्रियाविशेषा बहुलां भोगैश्वर्या गतिं प्रति. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. 244. भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. 245. त्रैगुण्या विषया वेद निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्. The Vedas deal mainly with with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. 246. यावानर्था उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. 247. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुर्मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. 248. योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. 249. दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणम् अन्विच्छ कृपणा फलहेतवः. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. 250. बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, O Arjuna, which is the art of all work. 251. कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धा विनिर्मुक्ता padam गच्छन्त्यनामयम्. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. 252. यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तस्मात् तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you will become indifferent to all that has been said and all that. I'll say it again. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. 255. श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थामनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. 256. दुःखेषु अनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोध स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. 257. यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहस्तत्तत्प्राप्याशुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. 259. विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्ज्यं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते. The embodied soul, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So, in the translation, sometimes there's a slight variation as compared to what's given in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, we try to follow what is given in Bhagavad Gita. So, wherever there is some slight changes, I just follow that, okay? Just make adjustments. 260. यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. 260. तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. 262. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. 263. क्रोधाद् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. 264. रागद्वेषाविमुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा prasadam अधिगच्छति. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. 265. प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. 266. नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिर् अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? 267. Indriyanam hi charatam यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्याहरति प्रज्ञां वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. 269. या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. 270. आपूर्यमाणम् अचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. I know it's 10:30, but we have chapter 3 still. Chapter 3, 3, 4. न कर्मणामनारम्भान् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. 3.5. न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्व प्रकृति जैर्गुणैः. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. 3.6. कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. 3.7. यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगम् असक्तः स विशिष्यते. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. 3.8. नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्म ज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रापि च ते न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. 3.9. यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्म बन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः परं व्रजेत् मुक्तसङ्गः समाचरा. Okay, translation. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duty for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. 3.10. सहयज्ञा प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाचा प्रजापतिः अनेना प्रसयिष्यध्वम् एष वोस्त्विष्ट कामधुक्. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." 3.12. इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवा दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्तानप्रदायैभ्यो यो भुङ्क्तेस्तेन एव सः. In charge of the various necessities of life, The demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. But if you offer to Krishna, then there's no need to offer to the demigods. This is for those who are not directly worshipping Krishna. At least they should offer to the demigods. 313. यज्ञशिष्टासिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात्. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. 314. अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्नसम्भवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञकर्मासमुद्भवः. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. 316. एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. 317. यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्याद् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Yeah. So yajna must be done by everyone. That means work. Karma has to be done by everyone. But someone who's completely satisfied in the self, for him there is no duty. 321. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tad tad evetaro janah sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Whatever action is a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. 322. न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तम् अवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. 324. उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोका न कुर्यां कर्म चेदहं शङ्करस्य च कर्तास्याम् उपहन्यामि मा प्रजाः. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. 326. न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. 27. प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहङ्कारा विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. 328. तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मा विभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. 330. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसः निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. 335. श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठिता स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. That's how it is given in Bhagavad Gita. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. 337. श्रीभगवानुवाच काम एषा क्रोध एषा रजोगुणा समुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विद्येनम् इह वैरिणम्. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." 339. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. 340. Indriyani manobuddhir asyadhishthanamuchyate etairvimohayatyesha jnanamavritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Next is 341. तस्मात् त्वम् इन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभा पाप्मानं प्रजहिह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम्. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. 342. इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुर् इन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिर् यो बुद्धे परतस्तु सः. The working senses are superior to dull matter, mind is higher than the senses, intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So, what is Krishna saying in the last few verses? So, Arjun had asked Krishna, what is it that is forcing me to act in a sinful way? Many times I don't want to act in a certain way, but it is as if somebody is forcing me to act. What is it that is forcing me to act? So Krishna is saying it is lust. It is lust only, which is the all devouring enemy of the soul, which is causing him to act in so many sinful ways. Then where is this lust located? Then Krishna said, lust is present in the senses. It is there. These are the sitting places of the lust. Yes. So it is sitting in the senses, mind, and intelligence. So then Krishna is saying how to control this lust. You curb it in the beginning itself, at the senses itself. Don't, so it sits in the senses, in the mind, in the intelligence. So if you can control the senses, then there is no way that it will progress further in the mind and intelligence. You stop it at the sense level. How do we do that? By following the regulative principles, right? So therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. If we don't take care of it at the sense level, it will go to the mind, it will go to the intelligence, and it actually takes away your knowledge, it destroys your self-realization. And then and also the hierarchy is given which is higher than the other. So dull matter is of the lowest level, then higher to the dull matter is the senses, working senses, like hands, legs, these are working senses, and higher to that will be the knowledge acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, like that. And higher to that is the mind, superior to that is intelligence, and even higher to the intelligence is the soul. So with that we come to the end of chapter 3. So we'll be reciting these 3 chapters for the next 3-4 days. Now let's read Mahabharata. So in Mahabharata, we were reading that the Pandavas, Arjun had already gone to the heavens, that we read before. And then uh, the Pandavas get instruction from which Muni? Narad Muni, right? It's Narad Muni tells the Pandavas that you should take a few. No, yeah, he will come. Narad Muni came and said, so first of all, this rishi called uh, Brihadashva, Brihadashva, he came and he taught Yudhishthir Maharaj the art of dice game. Yudhishthir Maharaj was not an expert in dice game. Now, Vrihadashva Muni gave him the knowledge of dice game, which would actually prove to be very useful to him in the future. And then, uh, after that, Narad Muni came. Narad Muni indicated that another rishi is going to come. I think it was Lomasa, right? Lomasa Muni will come. And he will take you to all the holy places. Uh, Let me just quickly go back and see. Yeah. Yeah, so we saw how before Vrihadashva Muni came, Bhimsen was trying to, tell Yudhishthir Maharaj, let's just go and fight like that. But but he knew that Yudhishthir Maharaj, he wouldn't do anything which is against Dharma. That's the reason why he was not acting. Otherwise, he would have fought and killed the enemy long time ago. So, but he was still not able to, his anger would kind of spill over. So he would express to Yudhishthir Maharaj from time to time. Anyway, Vrihadashva Muni came and he taught the dice, the art of playing dice to Yudhishthir Maharaj. So now, if Shakuni had challenged Yudhishthir Maharaj would win. He will not become a victim to Shakuni's cheating in dice. That happened. And then who came to visit the Pandavas? Narad Muni. Yes, next Narad Muni came. So what was the conversation between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Narad Muni? So Narad Muni said that you will receive great merit. So I think first Yudhishthir Maharaj asked about, tell me about all the holy places to be visited. Yudhishthir bowed before Narada here. Yudhishthir bowed before Narada and said that he wished to travel. Yeah. So this was Yudhishthir Maharaj's desire. He said, I want to go to various places of pilgrimage. Can you suggest which places of pilgrimage are most beneficial? Like that. And then Narad Muni said, uh, yeah. Narad Muni said that yes, you should visit the holy places. You should go. But don't take all the Brahmanas with you. uh, you take the brahmanas with you, but later on later on, Yudhishthir Maharaj cuts down the number of Brahmanas. Anyway, Narad Muni said, no, you go, you should go to the places of pilgrimage. You also take the rishis with you. Why? Because um, the Brahman, all these places of pilgrimage which are in the forest, they are infested with Rakshasas. So these Brahmanas and rishis would not be able to visit these holy places on their own. But you are Kshatriyas, you are there with your weapons. And when you destroy these Rakshasas, these Brahmins will also get an opportunity. Because of going with you, they'll also get an opportunity to visit these Tirthas. That's why you take the Brahmins along with you. And also, Narad Muni assured them that by going to these places of pilgrimage, they will also get darshan of great sages like Vishwamitra Muni, Valmiki Muni, Markandeya Rishi, like that. And also, Narad Muni said that soon Lomasa Rishi is going to come. He is going to take you around to all these places, like that. And yes, Lomasa Rishi also comes after that. And he said that I actually visited all various places, the whole world. I traveled twice, but I'm happy to go with you again for a third time. And then it was, ah, so how did the Pandavas know where Arjun was? They knew because Lomasa Rishi came. And while traveling, he could travel throughout the universe, not just on the earthly planets. So when he went to Lord Indra's court, there he saw Arjun sitting on the throne of Indra, sharing the throne, Indra's throne with him. So while traveling, when he came to the Pandavas, he told Yudhishthir Maharaj, I saw your brother Arjun, he's in the heavens. That means he succeeded in his in satisfying Lord Shiva, and he got all the weapons, and he's been there for 5 years. Now he's ready to come back. He's going to come down soon. So we should all go to Gandhamadana mountain where he's going to descend. So you can go and receive him when he comes from, returns from the heavens, like that. So they will be going to various places of pilgrimage, and finally they will stop at the Gandhamadana mountain. That is the plan. Lomasa Rishi uh, told them like this. And then Yudhishthir Maharaj, uh, they were very happy that once again, they heard about Arjun's success, and also they were going to see him again. Yes. So he said, we are going to the rishis. He said that we are going on this pilgrimage, but it's going to be a difficult travel in the forests. You may not get prasadam on time, like that, and it may be quite uh, austere. So you are Brahmins. I don't want to expose you to unnecessary suffering. Those who are expecting cooked food, regularly, please, you desist from traveling with us. You can go back either to Dhritarashtra Maharaj or Drupad Maharaj, and they will maintain you. Only those who don't mind the austerities can travel with us. So several Brahmanas returned, and some Brahmanas traveled with Yudhishthir Maharaj, the other three brothers, Draupadi, Daumya Muni, their priest, Lomasa Rishi, and all these Brahmanas. There were still like a few hundred Brahmanas traveling together. Then, um, yes, so now as they started their journey, Yudhishthir Maharaj asked Lomasa Rishi, how is it that when you are following Dharma, Dharma protects you? I see that as far as I can, you know, think, I've never abandoned Dharma, but still see how I'm facing so many reversals. On the other hand, those who are on the side of Adharma, they are enjoying life. How is this happening? Yudhishthir Maharaj's question. So then Lomasa Muni said, no, you should not grieve that somebody is prospering now and you think even though he's sinful, he's prospering now, it doesn't mean that's just what you're seeing now, right? He will have to bear the fruit of that in future. He will suffer. And similarly, someone who's adhering to dharma may appear to be suffering now, but his future is bright. Finally, a person who is sinful, temporarily it may appear like he's enjoying now, but actually his destination is he will be destroyed to the root. And Lomasara Muni is not just saying it like philosophy. He said, I have personally seen this in the case of so many Rakshasas, Daityas, who seem to be living in opulence, enjoying, although they're committing all types of sinful activities. But I saw how they ultimately got destroyed like that. So then he also told some stories and also, um, yeah. Yudhishthir Maharaj, they got courage hearing Lomasa Rishi's instructions, and then they started traveling toward the Himalayas. And when they reached the Himalayas, now here is Mount Meru and the peaks of Kailas, Gandhamadana, Trishringa, and Makaragiri. Pointing to them, he said, now we have reached here. The path from here is going to be difficult, right? So Yudhishthir Maharaj told Bhima, you guard, and it's going to be infested with Rakshasas also. Yeah. So let me just read it. Here reside thousands of invisible celestial beings, the Kimpurushas, Yakshas, Kinnaras, Suparnas, Nagas, and Rakshasas, all as swift as the wind and as powerful as a thousand mighty elephants. Move about on these mountain, they all move about on these mountain ranges. Sinful men cannot gain access here, for they will be destroyed by the celestials. But the Rakshasas also go there. That's also there. They are also celestials. So then Yudhishthir Maharaj told Bhimsen, guard Draupadi carefully. And then they started. Yeah, so here Lomasa Muni said that now Arjuna will be coming down on Gandhamadana mountain. So we will all go there and we will wait for Arjuna on Gandhamadana mountain. So then the difficulties that they had to, you know, face while climbing the steep hills, and how there were storms and water was flowing, like that. It was, yeah, and at one point it was impossible for them to, Draupadi even fainted, because of the severe cold and the torrents of rain and trees just crashing down, they were just falling down. So it appeared to be impossible to travel any further. At that time, Bhimsen told Yudhishthir Maharaj, uh, I can call my son Ghatotkach. Simply by meditating, he can come and he can carry us to our destination, like that. So Yudhishthir Maharaj said yes. So then Bhimsen remembered Ghatotkach, and immediately Ghatotkach appeared along with his associates. And then he said, we need to go to Badrikashram. Uh, so then he took Draupadi on his shoulders, Ghatotkach, and his other associates, the other Rakshasas. They took each of the Pandavas, the Brahmanas, like that. But Lomasa Muni did not need anyone to carry him. By his own merit, he flew up. And finally, they arrived at the big Badri tree, right? Yeah. And then Ghatotkach put them all down there. And then he said, uh, yeah, yeah, Yudhishthir thanked Ghatotkach and his followers and asked them to remain with them until they return to the Kamyaka. So now when Arjun will return, once again they'll go back to Kamyaka. So Yudhishthir Maharaj said to Ghatotkach, you stay here until we go back to Kamyaka. So then on the advice of Lomasa and Daumya, the Pandavas took up residence with the Rishi. So if there in Badri, That place, there were so many sages living. So I'll just read this part. So there's a description of this Badri tree. They gazed around in wonder. Even though they were high in the mountains, the entire region was adorned with celestial trees in full blossom. They saw the great Badri tree spread out like a vast umbrella of lush green foliage from which the ashram had derived its name. The tree exuded freshness and calmness like that. Very, very peaceful atmosphere. There were many colorful birds, right? Fruits, so on and so forth. Now, uh, yeah, there were many cottages of rishis around that tree. The whole region was lit by the effulgence of these sages. So, therefore, there was no need of sunlight or moonlight there. Very, very transcendental atmosphere. There was no excessive heat or cold. So, uh, and also naturally, all the exhaustion of the travel was dissipated, and mentally also the Pandavas became very peaceful in that atmosphere. In fact, even their hunger and thirst were satisfied simply by being in that place. So, like that. So now they decided to stay there, okay, and listen to. So, ultimately, the destination is to go to Gandhamadana. So, uh, so when it is time for Arjun to come, then they will go to Gandhamadana. Now they are staying near this Badri tree, like that. Now let's continue. Bhima meets Hanuman. So now the Pandavas are residing in Badrikashram. The Pandavas remained in Badrika Ashram for 6 days and nights. Yeah, so this is not like a long term stay. They are going to stay here until Arjun's arrival. When it is just time for Arjun to arrive, then they will go to Gandhamadana. The Pandavas remained in Badrika Ashram for 6 days and nights. On the seventh day, a wind blew from the northeast, carrying a single celestial lotus. The flower fell at Draupadi's feet. The princess looked in wonder at the golden, thousand petaled flower. So it was a lotus which was golden and it had thousand petals. Its fragrance delighted her mind and she was charmed by its beauty. She had never seen anything like it and she showed it to Bhima. Just behold this flower, O mighty armed one. Have you ever seen anything so wonderful? It gladdens my heart and I desire to give it to Yudhishthir. Please discover where it came from and bring others. So there, if it, so it's probably coming from a lake. So there must be more flowers like this. Bring others so that we may take them back to our hermitage in Kamyaka. Draupadi looked at Bhima with her dark eyes, which were covered with long curling lashes. Feeling her gaze upon him, Bhima felt commanded. He was overjoyed at the opportunity to do something for her pleasure. She had suffered so much over the past years. The gentle princess was not suited to forest life, and she still felt the agony of the insults she had suffered in Hastinapur. Now she suffered even more due to Arjun's absence. He had always been her favorite among the Pandavas. Bhim said, "It will be done. O blessed lady, you will see me return with an armful of these golden flowers." Bhima faced the wind and began to climb the mountain. He traveled swiftly, resembling a furious elephant crashing through the forest. All creatures fled away in fear as he raced ahead, thinking only of Draupadi. The region through which Bhima passed became increasingly beautiful. Not only were the trees in full bloom, but the rocks were black stone inlaid with gems. It seemed to Bhima as if the goddess Earth had raised her arm adorned with sparkling ornaments in the form of this mountain. Bhima felt a cool breeze fanning his body, and his energy increased. On all sides, he saw numerous Gandharvas and Siddhas sporting on the mountain slopes with their consorts. the beautiful celestial maidens turning their heads sideways to look at the Pandava as he rushed past. Bhima scoured the mountainside as he ran, looking everywhere for the lotuses, but he did not find the flowers. He continued higher into the mountain, roaring with exultation at his own strength and power. Hearing the tremendous noise, animals at a distance became afraid. The mountain tigers left their dens and ran about. Some of them tried to attack Bhima, but he slapped them aside as he ran. He just slapped the tigers and they just fell off and kept running. He lifted elephants and tossed them at other elephants, clearing his path. Bhima then came to a plantain forest, bananas. He entered it with force and broke some of the tall trees by hitting against them. He was just running, but when he was running, when he, uh, he just ran into them, I guess. So he just caused them all to fall down like a hurricane, right? All trees falling down. So he entered it with force and broke some of the trees, tall trees, by hitting against them with his arms and thighs. He was still shouting, and his roars now mixed with the terrified cries of the forest animals. The tumult he created carried for miles. Suddenly, Bhima noticed aquatic birds rising into the air not far off, frightened by the noise. So if you see aquatic birds, what does it mean? There is some water reservoir. There's a reservoir of water. So realizing there must be water nearby and the lotuses grow on water, he made his way toward the birds. Soon he saw a delightful lake. The Pandava went down to the water, which was adorned by innumerable lotuses and lilies. He dived in and swam about like a maddened elephant. Refreshed and enlivened, he rose from the water and let out a terrific blast from his conch shell. Examining the lotuses, however, he realized that they were not the same as the one Draupadi desired. He set off up the mountain again, following the path leading up from the lake. He heard a loud noise just ahead of him. The sound echoed all around the mountain and made Bhima's hair stand on end. He ran forward to see what could have made such a noise, and he found a huge monkey lying across the path, lashing the ground with his long tail and making the earth tremble. So, what was that noise? That noise was the monkey's tail lashing against the ground. It was such a loud sound noise that Bhima's hair was standing on end and the earth was trembling. The monkey was effulgent and resembled a blazing hill of copper, a huge sized monkey, hill of copper. He had broad shoulders and a slender waist. His face shone like the full moon, and behind his thin lips, Bhima could see sharp, pearl like teeth. Seeing him obstructing his path like a hill, Bhima roared at him. The monkey, however, did not seem impressed. He slowly opened his reddish eyes and looked lazily at Bhima. Why have you awakened me? I am ill and deserve your kindness. Indeed, as a human, you should know the codes of religion and show kindness to all lower creatures. O hero, it seems you do not know virtue because you have come here forcefully, destroying animals on your way. Who are you? Where are you going? Do you not know that you cannot proceed further? This path leads to heaven, and men cannot access it. Only those who are successful in ascetic practices can go to the celestial regions. Therefore, give up your quest and turn back. Or rest here a while first and partake of the sweet fruits and cool water. O foremost of men, do not try to force your way past and thus die for nothing. Intrigued, Bhima responded politely, who are you, O respectable one? Why are you in the form of a monkey? I myself belong to the royal order. I am a descendant of Kuru and the son of King Pandu, and I was born in the lunar dynasty from the union of Kunti and Vayu. My name is Bhima. So the monkey replies, I am simply a monkey. I shall not allow you to pass. Turn back now. Do not meet with destruction. Bhima felt his anger rising, right? He gave such a nice introduction of himself, and he expected the other person also would probably tell about himself, but he said, oh, I'm just a monkey, but you can't pass from here. Just go back. Don't meet your destruction. Bhima felt his anger rising. Who was this ape? Oh, monkey, I do not ask that you give me permission, nor am I interested to hear your thoughts about my destruction. Stand aside. Do not experience grief at my hands. The monkey, still speaking in a lazy voice, said, I am ill and cannot move. If you must pass me, then step over my body. Bhima shook his head. How can I step over you when I know that the all pervading super soul, the Lord of all, resides in your heart as he does in the hearts of every being? I cannot disregard him. Bhima looked closely at the monkey, and he thought of the great Hanuman, Lord Ram's devoted servant. Could this be him? But that monkey had lived in a long past age. How could he still be living? That would mean he was now almost 1,000,000 years old. No, it was impossible. Bhima continued, had I not been aware of the super soul, I would have leaped over you as well as the entire mountain. Even as Hanuman leaped, so Bhima is saying, even as Hanuman leaped across the ocean. The monkey turned toward Bhima and opened his eyes wide. Who is this Hanuman who leaped over the ocean? Tell me if you can. Bhima sang, he was my brother, begotten by the wind god and endowed with intelligence and strength. He was the best of monkeys, and he is celebrated in the Ramayana. For the sake of Ram's wife Sita, he leaped 100 yojanas over the sea to Lanka. I am equal to him in strength and prowess, and am thus able to chastise you. Arise, O monkey, and give way. Otherwise, I shall send you to Yamaraja's abode. The monkey remained calm. I have grown old and cannot move. Please move my tail and make your way past. Bhima moved toward the monkey. This was surely not Hanuman, for Hanuman's power was limitless. This monkey was simply some insolent and powerless being who deserved to be punished for obstructing his path and refusing to move. Perhaps he was even a Rakshasa, assuming a disguise and waiting for a chance to attack. Bhima decided to take him by the tail and whirl him around till he died. The Pandava bent over and carelessly took hold of the monkey's tail with his left hand. To his surprise, he found that he could not budge the tail. Placing both hands firmly around the monkey's tail, Bhima pulled hard. Still, it could not be moved. Bhima struggled with all his strength. His face was contracted. He was covered with perspiration and his eyes rolled. Can you imagine? He's trying with all his might. Despite his efforts, however, Bhima could not shift it at all. The Pandava realized that this was not an ordinary monkey or even a demon as he had supposed, because he had first hand experiences with demons. So this is not even a demon, and it's not certainly not an ordinary monkey. Bowing his head in shame, he stood before the creature with joined palms and said, Forgive me for my harsh words. Are you a Siddha, a Gandharva, or a god? I am curious. Who are you in the shape of a monkey? I seek your refuge and ask you in the mood of a disciple. If it is no secret, then be pleased to tell me, right? What is your identity? The monkey sat up. O chastiser of enemies, as you are curious, I shall tell you. Know me to be the son of that life of the universe, Vayu, born in the womb of Keshari. I am the monkey named Hanuman, whom you mentioned earlier. As Bhima listened in amazement, Hanuman told him in brief the famous history of the Ramayana, which the Pandava already knew well. When Hanuman finished speaking, tears fell from Bhima's eyes, and he fell to the ground to offer his obeisances. Rising up again, he spoke joyfully to the monkey chief. No one is more fortunate than me, for I have seen my famous and powerful brother. O great one, I have only one desire. Please show me the form with which you jumped over the ocean. I shall then have full faith in your words. Hanuman replied, that form cannot be seen by you or anyone else. When I leaped over the ocean, things were quite different than they are now. It was a different age and everything was greater. Now that Kali Yuga is about to begin, all things have diminished. I can no longer display that gigantic form because every being must obey the dictates of time. I am no exception. Therefore, please do not ask me to reveal that form. So you see, the trees were taller, everything was bigger in previous ages. Just like their lifespans were longer, the size of everything else was also bigger. And Hanumanji is saying, according to time, now uh, Dwapar Yuga is ending, Kali Yuga is going to start. So I have also reduced my size according to the time. Everyone must obey the dictates of time. Hearing Hanuman speak, Bhima became curious to learn more from his ancient brother. Please tell me, O Hanuman, what are the different manners and customs of each age? You have been alive almost since the first age. How have people pursued religion, economic development, pleasure, and liberation in each of the yugas? Hanuman began with Satyayuga. At that time, every living being was self realized and devoted to the Supreme Lord's service. Can you imagine? Every person is self realized and devoted to the Supreme Lord's service. With the onset of each successive age, however, everything diminishes and becomes more degraded. Virtue, which was fully manifest in the first age, was diminished by a quarter in each successive age. So in Satya Yuga, if you had 100% virtue, Treta Yuga you will have 75%. Dwapar Yuga you'll have 50% virtue. Kali Yuga you'll have 25%. By the end of Kali Yuga, zero. So by now, Hanuman explained virtue and religion were three quarters lost because Dwapar Yuga is almost ending, right? After the battle of Kurukshetra, then after the Pandavas, for a few years they rule, and when the Pandavas leave, that's the beginning of Kali Yuga. So now three quarters is lost. Of virtue and religion. As the ages progress and virtue diminishes, so the nature and abilities of men undergo diminishment. Everything becomes inauspicious. Even the performance of religious acts in this last age produces contrary results. Right? You do dharma, and that dharma will give you contrary results in Kali Yuga. How then can I show the form with which I leaped over the great ocean? And even if I could, why should a wise man such as yourself ask to see something so unnecessary? It's not required. But Bhima was insistent. He sensed that Hanuman was able to show his most powerful form despite his reluctance. The Pandava greatly desired to see it, and he declared that he would not leave until he was satisfied. At last the monkey chief relented. Telling Bhima to stand back, Hanuman rose up from his sitting place and expanded his body to massive proportions. He covered all sides and towered above Bhima, looking like a second Vindhya mountain. In a voice which resounds, so obviously when he's big, the voice also becomes amplified, the sound is amplified. In a voice which resounded through the forest, he spoke to the awestruck Pandava. O Bhima, this is the extent to which you are able to see my form. Not that this is the highest limit. I could go on expanding myself almost without limit. My size and power increase amid foes according to their strength. So, depending on the strength of the enemy, that's how strong I can become. So that it's a fair fight, isn't it? Rama's devoted servants can never be overcome by any enemy. And Hanuman is not giving that credit to himself. He's not saying because I'm Hanuman, therefore. No, he's saying because I'm a servant of Lord Ram. And not just me, any servant of Lord Ram will never be overcome by any enemy. Bhima felt his hair standing erect. Dropping to his knees, he said, "O Lord, O greatly mighty one, I have seen your form to my satisfaction. You resemble the Mainaka mountain as you are able to show such power. How was it that Ram had to exert himself to fight with Ravana? Right? You are so powerful. Only you could have defeated. Why Lord Ramchandra had to go through so much, you know, ordeal to find Ravana and then to fight him and kill him? With you by his side, what need was there for him to do battle with that Rakshasa? It seems to me that you could have immediately and single handedly crushed Lanka with all its warriors, elephants, and chariots." Hanuman returned to his normal size and replied solemnly, "O mighty armed descendant of Bharata, it is exactly as you say. That wretch Ravana was no match for me. But if I had slain him, then the glory of Dasharath's son would have been obscured. By killing the king of the demons and rescuing Sita, my Lord Ram has established his fame and glory among men." Hanuman then told Bhima to go back to his brothers. Bhima explained that he first had to find the source of the thousand petaled lotuses, and Hanuman showed him the way to the forest where they grew. There is the path which leads to the Saugandhika forest, and there you will see Kuvera's gardens, which are guarded by the Yakshas and Rakshasas. In a great lake lie the flowers which you seek for your wife. Hanuman came forward and embraced Bhima with affection. He briefly instructed him in the science of kingship and then said, "O Bhima, having once again come in contact with a human, I have felt in my mind the presence of my Lord Ram, who is Vishnu incarnate and who is the blazing sun to the lotus Sita, right? The lotus blooms so with the sunshine. So Sita is the lotus and Lord Ram is the sun. So by coming in contact with a human, uh, I felt in my mind the presence of Lord Ram, who is Lord Vishnu himself and is like the blazing sun to the lotus Sita and to the darkness called Ravana. He is son to Sita and he is son to Ravana also. To Ravana, who is like darkness. Uh, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoy Andhakar, Jaha Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Radhikar. Where there is sun, there cannot be darkness. So for Ravana, Ram is destruction. Ram is like death. For Ravana, when he saw Ram, it's his death to him, right? But for Sita Devi, Lord Ramchandra is life. He is the son for both, but acting differently, right? To Ravana, his death, and to Sita, his life. Therefore, I wish to give you a boon. Why? Hanuman is saying to Bhimsen, because you have reminded me, you have once again made me experience the presence of my Lord. Therefore, I wish to give you a boon. Ask of me whatever you desire. If you wish, I shall go to Hastinapur and kill Dhritarashtra's insignificant sons and grind their city to powder. You want me to do that, Bhima? I'll go and do it for you. Or I can bind Duryodhan and bring him here. Tell me, what can I do for you? Bhima replied that he felt assured of success if Hanuman would simply lend his support and blessings. Even his presence on the battlefield would guarantee victory. Hanuman replied, "When you rush forward for the fight, sending forth lion like roars, I will add my roars to yours. Remaining on the flagstaff of Arjun's chariot, I shall strike fear into the hearts of your foes by my terrific yells. So, Bhimsen, later on when we read about the battle of Kurukshetra, we will see how Bhimsen is roaring when he attacks the enemies. But he got a blessing from Hanumanji that whenever Bhimsen roars, Hanumanji staying on the flag of Arjun, from that flag he will also roar. He will add his roars to Bhimsen's roars, and this will uh, create terror in the hearts of the enemy. After embracing his brother once more, Hanuman told him to depart for Saugandhika. Seeing the glint in Bhima's impetuous eyes as he made ready to leave, Hanuman held him by the arms and said, "Do not take the flowers forcefully, child. The celestials should always be respected. In this way, they will bestow their blessings upon you. As a Kshatriya, you should perform your duty to protect other living beings humbly and keep your passions under control. Go in peace. I bid you farewell." Because the way he arrived until that point was quite, you know, not in a very, he was causing discomfort to other living entities. So Hanumanji gave some instruction that be humble and respectful to the celestials. Hanuman disappeared and Bhima headed towards Saugandhika. As he walked, he reflected on the majestic form Hanuman had shown him. Who could imagine such a sight either on heaven or on earth? Bhima also remembered Ram's glories and the great battle he had fought for Sita with Hanuman's help. Millions of Rakshasas had been slain. Bhima knew a similar fight awaited the Pandavas. Again, the all powerful Lord, the original Supreme Person, would take part in the fight. The world would then be rid of unwanted elements. Duryodhana and his brothers were no better than the sinful Rakshasas, and Krishna had destroyed as Lord Ram, which Krishna had destroyed as Lord Ram. Again, Duryodhana and his brothers were no better than the sinful Rakshasas which Krishna had destroyed. Krishna had already killed so many demons. So Duryodhana and his brothers were like the demons that Krishna had destroyed. Well, not Krishna. Lord Ram had destroyed the Rakshasas. Who is that Lord Ram? That is Krishna only now, right? So Krishna, as Lord Ram, had destroyed the Rakshasas. Duryodhana and his brothers are no better than those Rakshasas that Krishna destroyed in the form of Lord Ramchandra. Bhimsen is thinking, how could they then rule the world? Surely it was the Lord's desire that they be annihilated. That means certainly we will be victorious. That same Lord Ram is there now as Krishna, and those Rakshasa like enemies, Duryodhana and his brothers, are going to stand on the battlefield. The way Lord Ramchandra destroyed those Rakshasas, similarly Krishna will destroy all these Duryodhana and party. Soon, Bhima's mind again drifted to his surroundings. He was moving swiftly again, but the beauty of the woodlands, groves, orchards, lakes, and rivers was not lost on him. Still, the cool breeze carried that captivating fragrance from the blossoming trees. Herds of wild elephants roved about like masses of clouds, while buffaloes, bears, leopards, and deer moved here and there. Bhima pressed on. Just after noon, he at last arrived in the Saugandhika region. There he saw the lake, filled with fresh golden lotuses, exactly like the one that had blown to Draupadi's feet. Swans swam upon the lake, and other water birds mingled with them, all making delightful sounds. The lake seemed to be fed by mountain springs that fell into it in cascades that sparkled in the sun. A canopy of green and golden trees, which swayed gently in the breeze, provided shade along the sandy lake shore. Heaps of precious stones lay here and there. Along with the thousand petaled lotuses, other charming flowers of a dark blue hue grew on stalks made of Vaidurya gems. Bhima's mind was stolen by their beauty, but the thousands of yakshas and rakshasa guards Kuvera had deployed to protect his lake saw Bhima arrive. So around this lake were thousands of yaksha and rakshasa guards who were there to protect that lake. And they saw Bhima coming. They moved toward him, and their leader shouted, "Who are you, O effulgent one? Why have you come here, clad in a deer skin, yet bearing weapons? We are the Krodhavashas, guardians of this lake." Krodhavashas. I am Bhimsen, Pandu's son. I have come with my elder brother Dharmaraj to Badrika ashram. There too is my dear wife Draupadi. The breeze brought to her an excellent Saugandhika lotus, and she asked me to bring her more. O night rangers, I have thus come here in order to satisfy that lady of faultless features, for her wish is always my order. The Rakshasa placed his spear on the ground and replied, O foremost of men, this place is Kuvera's favorite playground. Humans may not sport here, nor may they take away the flowers and fruits. Only the celestials are permitted to use this lake. Others who try, disregarding the Lord of Wealth, certainly meet destruction. As you desire to take away the lotuses belonging to Kuvera without his permission, how can you say that you are Dharmaraj's brother? Do not perform an irreligious act. First ask Kuvera's permission, and then you may enter the lake. Bhima did not care for the warning. He had little regard for Rakshasas and was certainly not going to be told what to do by them. Completely forgetting Hanuman's admonishment, he placed his hand on his mace and boomed out, O Rakshasas, I do not see the illustrious Kuvera here, and even if I did, I would not pray for these flowers. It is not the duty of Kshatriyas to beg. In any event, this lake has sprung up on the mountain breast and belongs to everyone. Kuvera did not make it, nor did he create the lotuses. Why then should I ask his permission? Having said this, Bhima plunged into the lake and began to gather the lotuses. The Krodhavashas advanced, shouting at him to desist. Bhima ignored them. As far as he was concerned, the lotuses were the property of their creator, God, not any lesser God. Bhima felt he had as much right to take them as he did as did Kuvera. The Pandava knew that Draupadi would first offer them to the Lord before giving them to anyone else. Seeing Bhima taking the flowers despite their warnings, the guards charged. Right? They were telling him to stop, he didn't stop. So now the guards attacked. Seize him, cut him up, bind him. The Rakshasas entered the shallow waters, and Bhima stood to receive them. He was ready. Taking hold of his mace, inlaid with gold and resembling the mace Yamaraj carries, Bhima shouted back, Stand and fight! The guards surrounded Bhima. Bhima whirled his mace and met the advancing Rakshasas with blows. Heroic and courageous, Vayu's son was devoted to virtue and truth and was thus incapable of being vanquished by any enemy through prowess. He killed the Krodhavashas by the hundreds, beginning with the foremost among them. Many of them fell into the water, their arms and legs broken. Bhima was a furious whirlwind now. The Rakshasas could hardly look at him as he fought. They began to flee in fear, taking to the skies. Seeing the guards retreating, Bhima lowered his mace and continued to gather lotuses. He drank the lake's clear water, which tasted like celestial nectar and which restored his energy and strength. As he picked the lotuses, he presented them mentally to Draupadi. The Krodhavashas ran back in terror to Kuvera and told him what had happened. The god only smiled and said, Let Bhima take as many lotuses as he likes for Draupadi. I already knew he would be coming. Hearing their master's words, the guards returned to the lake and saw Bhima sporting alone in its waters with a number of lotuses lying near him on the bank. They watched him in silence, keeping a safe distance. Let's see, if the next chapter is big, we'll read tomorrow. If it is small, we can read now. I think we can read it. Chapter 28. Kuvera offended. At Badrika, Yudhishthir suddenly noticed the appearance of fearful omens. A violent wind blew up, lashing sand and pebbles into the Pandavas' faces. Meteors fell from the sky, and the sun became obscured by darkness. The earth trembled, dust fell in showers, and explosions were heard in the sky. All around them, the brothers could hear the shrieks of birds and beasts. Yudhishthir looked around. Where was Bhima? Had his brother gone off on some adventure? These omens obviously indicated that something powerful was occurring somewhere. Not seeing Bhima anywhere, Yudhishthir feared that he might be the cause of the portents. He spoke anxiously to his brothers. O invisible ones, arm yourselves. It seems that the time for us to display our prowess has arrived. Yudhishthir turned to Draupadi. Do you know where Bhima is? Is he intent on performing some terrible act? Or has he already achieved a tremendous feat? These omens clearly indicate battle. O hero, this morning I presented to you a golden lotus. I requested Bhima to fetch more of those flowers, and he left at once for the higher reaches of this mountain. Yudhishthir could immediately understand that Bhima had disturbed the celestials by attempting to take the lotuses from them. He went quickly to Ghatotkacha and said, O Sky Ranger, you are like a celestial in prowess and ability. We need your help. It seems my younger brother has gone upward to the regions of the gods. By his own power, Vayu's son can leap into the sky and come down at will. He moves with the speed of the wind and has left to find the celestial lotuses. Please carry us to the place where they grow so that I may see what Bhima has done. Replying, so be it, Ghatotkacha and his followers carried the Pandavas, Draupadi, and the Brahmins to Saugandhika. Ghatotkacha had already been there a number of times and he knew the way well. As they descended to the ground near the lake, they saw Bhima standing on the shore holding his mace. At a distance, they saw the large eyed Krodhavashas watching him. A number of them lay on the ground and in the water with their heads and limbs smashed. Yudhishthir was shocked. He went over to Bhima, embraced him, and said, O son of Kunti, what have you done? Be blessed. But if you wish to do good to me, then you should never again be so rash as to offend the celestials. Seeing Yudhishthir there, the Yaksha guards folded their palms and bowed their heads in humility. The Pandava apologized for his brother's acts and consoled them with gentle words. Looking around at the beauty of the region, Yudhishthir desired to remain there for some time with his brothers. He asked the guards to request Kuvera's permission for them to stay. Hearing that Pandu's sons had come there, Kuvera was pleased and he gave his assent. Thus, Yudhishthir and his party remained for some time on the high slopes of Gandhamadana, enjoying the heavenly atmosphere. After a few days, Yudhishthir desired to see Kuvera. Sitting by the lakeside one morning, he told Bhima, O brother, we have seen all the holy places with Lomasha and the other Brahmins. Let us now see that most holy of places, Kuvera's abode, always frequented by Siddhas and Rishis. Can you think of some way by which we can enter the heavenly region? But as Yudhishthir finished speaking, a celestial voice resounded in the sky. O king, you will not be able to go to the inaccessible abode of Vaishravana, that is Kuvera, by this way. Go back to Badrika ashram. From that place you will go to the hermitage of Rishaparva and then to the hermitage of Arishtashena. From there you will see Kuvera's abode. As the divine voice spoke, a cool, fragrant breeze blew down a shower of flowers. Naumia said, "This order of the gods cannot be ignored. We should leave immediately." During the last few weeks before Arjun's return, the Pandavas spent their time in the company of rishis, but Bhima often roved about the mountain with Ghatotkach. One day, while the two heroes were absent, a powerful Rakshasa appeared at Badrika ashram. He had actually been there all along, having assumed the form of a Brahmin and living unrecognized by the brothers. He wanted to steal Draupadi. Seeing his chance, what was the chance? Bhim and Ghatotkach were absent. Seeing his chance, he manifested his monstrous form, grabbed Yudhishthir and the twins in one arm and Draupadi in the other. He also seized the Pandavas' weapons. Then he rushed into the forest. Sahadev managed to extricate himself and snatch his sword, known as Kaushika. Then he chased the demon while calling loudly for Bhima. Yudhishthir reprimanded the Rakshasa. "O fool, virtue decreases in you, and yet you care nothing. What good result do you hope to attain by your vile behavior? In this material world, the celestials, pitris, siddhas, animals, and even worms and ants depend upon men for life. Even your race, Rakshasas, depends upon men." Yudhishthir instructed the Rakshasa about the interdependence of all beings. Sahayagya Prajasrishtva, we just recited. Yudhishthir instructed the Rakshasa about the interdependence of all beings. By sacrifice and religious performances, mankind satisfies the gods and the Supreme Lord, who in turn supplied them and all creatures their necessities. If men suffered and were unable to practice religion, then everyone was affected. Yudhishthir warned, "O wretch, as you have shown ingratitude for our having maintained you for so long, and as you are now trying to steal our wife, you will surely meet with destruction." Because this Rakshasa was disguised as a Brahman all this time and he was being maintained by Yudhishthir. So that's why Yudhishthir Maharaj is saying that, because of your ingratitude, you will meet with destruction. The Rakshasa felt Yudhishthir becoming unbearably heavy. He was forced to slow his pace. Sahadev was then able to catch up to him. Yudhishthir called out, "Do not be afraid of this Rakshasa, brother. I have checked his speed and I sense that Bhima is not far away." Sahadev stood before the Rakshasa and said, "Stay and fight. Only after killing me can you carry this lady away into the forest. Otherwise, you will die. I am Pandu's son Sahadev, and I am here to punish you." As Sahadev brandished his sword, Bhima arrived wielding his mace. Seeing his brothers and Draupadi in the Rakshasa's grip, he blazed with fury and roared, "O sinful wretch! I found you out long ago when I saw you scrutinizing our weapons. But as I apprehended no fear from you, and as you were disguised as a Brahmin, I took no action against you. He who kills such a person living as a guest, even if he knows him to be an enemy, goes to hell. Nor could you be killed before your time had arrived. Today you have touched the sinless Draupadi and thus destroyed your life duration. You have swallowed the hook fastened to the line of fate, and like the fish, will meet your destruction. Go now to where Hidimba and Baka have already gone." The Rakshasa became alarmed and let Draupadi and her husbands go. His lips trembled in anger as he rebuked Bhima. "It is you who are sinful. I know of your having slain those Rakshasas. Today I will offer them oblations of your blood. Come and fight. I am waiting." Without saying more, Bhima rushed at the demon. Seeing him unarmed, he put down his mace and took hold of the Rakshasa with his bare hands. The demon met him like the Asura Vritra met Indra. As they fought in fury, the earth vibrated with their heavy steps. The twins came forward to help, but Bhima checked them. I'm more than a match for this demon. By my religious merit, my sacrifices, and by my brothers, I swear that I shall kill this one today. The battle between man and Rakshasa raged. They tossed each other about and aimed terrific blows at one another. Their colliding fists sounded like thunderclaps. As they rolled about, locked in combat, they broke down gigantic trees. They then lifted those trees and fought with them. They were using the trees as weapons. The air was filled with fragments of wood as the trees were smashed to pieces. When the entire area was denuded of of trees. All trees were uprooted, so it just became clear. They fought with rocks and boulders. Without a moment's pause, the two fought intensely, each seeking the other's death. They appeared like a mountain and a mass of clouds coming together. As they hurled boulders at one another, it seemed as if meteors were falling from the heavens. Even though repeatedly struck on the head and body by the rocks, neither fighter flinched. They wrestled like a pair of infuriated elephants, gnashed their teeth, and roared. The dreadful fight lasted for almost 30 minutes. Finally, Bhima raised his fist, which resembled a five-hooded serpent, and dealt the Rakshasa a terrible blow on the neck. He fainted, and Bhima caught hold of him as he fell. He raised the Rakshasa up with his two mighty arms and dashed him to the ground. Bhima pounded his fallen foe into a lifeless lump of flesh. With his bare hands, he tore off the demon's head and threw it aside. That blood smeared head, with wide open eyes and bitten lips, rolled away like a huge jackfruit. Spattered with the demon's blood, Bhima came to Yudhishthir and bowed before him with folded hands. Yudhishthir and his brothers praised Bhima, even as the Maruts praise Indra in heaven. The brothers then returned to the ashram. It was almost 5 years since Arjun had departed. Lomisa told the Pandavas that they could expect him to return shortly. He thus instructed them to go to a higher part of the mountain to meet him, taking up their few possessions, and with Daumya, Lomisa, and a handful of other Brahmins accompanying them, the Pandavas climbed to a higher plateau on Gandhamadana. As the celestial voice had predicted, they came to the ashrams of the royal sage Vrishaparva and the great rishi Ashtishena. Remember when Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted to see Kuvera's place, right? His palace. They said you cannot go from here. You will first have to go to Vrishaparva's ashram and then to Aristashena's ashram. From there, you'll be able to go to Kuvera's residence. So they went. Remaining with them for some time, the Pandavas received spiritual instructions from them. Aristasena told them that it would not be possible for them to go further up the mountain. Above here lies the path to the higher planets. No man can go there unless he is entirely pure and sinless. Along that path, you will find the gods' sporting ground. Even from here, we can hear the sound of their kettle drums, tabors, and venas. Ashtishena told the brothers that he had been to the mountain's summit and seen the gods for himself. He'd also seen the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Kimpurushas, and other heavenly beings consorting with the Apsaras. The great lord of wealth, Kuvera, could often be seen there, being worshipped by the best of the Yakshas. At that time, this entire region resounds with the melodic chanting of the Samaveda. When when Kuvera is being worshipped by Yakshas, the whole region becomes filled with the melodic chanting of Samaveda. Daityas, Danavas, and Siddhas alike join in the worship of that illustrious Lokapala Kuvera. Remember who are the four Lokapalas? Who? Tell. Yeah, go ahead. Madhav.
Varandev, Indradev, Yamaraj, and Kuvera.
Yes, Vayu, Indra, not Vayu, Varuna. Varuna, Kuvera, Indra, and Yamaraj. So here Kuvera is also a Lokapala. Yeah. So the Rishi suggested that the brothers should reside peacefully at his ashram. Who is saying this? Ashtishena. Because you cannot go there, you stay here in my ashram until Arjun returned. Looking especially at Bhima, he said, do not be restless here. Rather live at ease. Be peaceful. The time will come soon enough for you to display your strength in the battlefield. Without doubt, you will crush your enemies and govern the earth. Surveying the region, the Pandavas felt as if they had already gone to the heavenly planets. Every kind of tree was present, all of them blossoming and bending with the weight of ambrosial fruits. Sweetly singing birds played in the lush foliage, while peacocks, with their tails outspread, appeared like the trees' crowns. The lakes teemed with waterfowl and were adorned with lotuses, and the air rang with the hum of maddened bees, who drank the nectar falling from the lotus cups. The brothers were fanned by a balmy breeze that carried celestial fragrances and fine drops of cooling spray. There were countless varieties of animals, all of them peaceful and harmless. One day, as the Pandavas and Draupadi were seated on the shore of a lake, they saw the great eagle Garuda descending toward its waters. The bird blazed with a golden effulgence. His huge wing beats created a wind that tossed the forest and sent showers of blossoms to the ground. Trees closest to the lake were crushed by the force of his descent, and the mountain trembled. He flew with the speed of the wind, and before the Pandavas' eyes carried away a mighty Naga serpent who lived in the lake. Having taken hold of the Naga in his talons, Garuda rose high into the sky above the mountain and disappeared into the distance. As the eagle went north, the wind from his wings blew many flowers from the mountain top down to where the Pandavas sat. Seeing the celestial flowers of 5 colors, Draupadi said to Bhima, O best of the Bharatas, see here the exquisite blossoms which have fallen from the mountain peaks. Surely they have come from Kuvera's abode. O hero, how I wish to see that heavenly place. But it is heavily guarded by Rakshasas, Yakshas, and other powerful beings. If only Arjun were here. When Agni burned the Khandava, your invincible brother, held at bay the entire host of gods with their celestial army. So she's saying, if Arjun were here, he could take me, right? Now I won't be able to go because that place is guarded by Rakshasas and Yakshas. Arjun is capable of fighting the Rakshasas and Yakshas like that. In this way, Draupadi playfully taunted Bhima. Bhima frowned at Draupadi as Draupadi went on. Surely you too are capable of standing against any foe, human or celestial. O Bhimsen, send all the Rakshasas fleeing to the 10 directions by the mere force of your arms. Let all of us approach this mountain peak without fear. I have cherished this thought in my mind for some time. Protected by your prowess, I long to see this mountain top. Bhima looked like a wounded bull. He could not stand Draupadi's words. Without delay, he rose up, took his weapons, and made his way up the mountain side. Moving with the gait of of a lion, that mighty man, as tall as a young sal tree, having a complexion of burnished gold, with broad shoulders and a neck like a conch shell, rushed with full force toward the sheer rock face which led to the mountain summit. Quickly Bhima found a narrow passage by which he could scale the mountain, which was inaccessible to ordinary men. Grasping hold of creepers and crevices in the rocks, he climbed swiftly. As he reached the summit, he came to a vast plateau where he beheld Kuvera's abode. It was adorned with glowing golden and crystal buildings of celestial design. The heavenly mansions were surrounded by high golden walls encrusted with gems of every color. Bhima leaned on the end of his bow and gazed in wonder at the city. Ramparts and towers stood all around it, and it was graced by huge gates and rows of tall flagstaffs, their colorful pennants fluttering in the wind. In the gardens outside the city lay heaps of gems, and along its walls garlands were hung. The trees were beyond human imagination, and around them Bhima saw many beautiful apsaras dancing to the strains of heavenly music. The sight of Kubera's opulence sorrowed Bhima as he remembered the wealth Yudhishthir had once possessed. Then he again became angry as he remembered Duryodhan's crimes. He took out his conch shell and blew it with the full force of his lungs. The sound echoed around the mountain summit and struck terror into the hearts of all creatures. From the ramparts, the startled yakshas and Rakshasa guards saw Bhima standing with his bow, sword, and mace. They swarmed out in the thousands and rushed at him, shouting in anger. Their upraised clubs, maces, swords, javelins, spears, and axes seemed to blaze up as they advanced. Bhima shot numerous arrows at them, cutting off their weapons and striking down the Rakshasas who were on the ground and in the sky. The Yakshas hemmed Bhima in on all sides. He now appeared like the sun, enveloped by clouds. Without fear, he took out his sword and severed the arms, legs, and heads of his assailants. As he fought with the roaring Yakshas, he was drenched in showers of blood. Although they attacked him from every side, the celestial fighters did not see Bhima flinch or become discouraged. Mangled by his weapons, they fell back in fear, uttering frightful cries of distress. They dropped their weapons and fled in all directions. The commander of the Yaksha army, Maniman, addressed his fleeing troops angrily. How will you tell Vaishravana that a single man has routed vast numbers of Yakshas? The powerful Maniman, armed with darts, clubs, javelins, and maces, stood as firm as a mountain. His voice boomed out like a drum. O human, stay and fight. Having come to the Lord of Wealth's abode, you shall now be able to also see Yamaraj's abode. With a terrible yell, Maniman rushed at Bhima, who instantly released 3 arrows, each of which pierced Maniman in the side. Maniman then hurled his mace at Bhima, and it flew toward him like a flash of lightning. Bhima fired arrows which struck the mace with force, but were unable to stop it. Quickly, Bhima raised his own mace and smashed the Yaksha's mace as it fell toward him with the force of a thunderbolt. Seeing his mace broken, Maniman threw an iron club. As the golden handled club shot through the air, it roared and sent forth bright orange flames and showers of sparks. Bhima moved aside, but the club caught him on the arm, wounding him severely. Hanuman shouted triumphantly as Bhima fell back for a moment. But Bhima soon recovered and again raised his mace, the Shaika. That's the name of Bhima's mace. He rushed at Maniman with a tremendous cry. The Yaksha hurled a huge dart and it screamed through the air, glowing like the sun. Bhima whirled his mace and knocked the blazing dart away. Bhima then resolved to kill his adversary without further delay. He whirled the Shaika over his head and rushed toward the Yaksha. With a shout that reverberated around the mountain, Bhima hurled his mace at Maniman. It struck him full on the chest with a fearful crash and split his heart in two. The Yaksha fell to the ground like a palm tree flattened by a hurricane. Seeing their commander lying dead, the surviving Yakshas and Rakshasas fled. Bhima stood alone on that mountain plateau, looking around for further attack. The sound of the battle had reached Yudhishthira. hearing the mountain caves resound with loud war cries and other sounds. The Pandava and his brothers became anxious. They learned from Draupadi that Bhima had again gone up the mountain. Yudhishthir took the twins and quickly went after him. They ascended the mountain and came to the plateau where Bhima was standing. The Pandavas stood looking like Indra after he had slain all the Danavas in battle. These were not Danavas. He looked like Indra who stood in the field after killing all Danavas. He was surrounded by the dead bodies of numerous yakshas and rakshasas. Many others lay on the ground still moving, their limbs smashed by Bhima. Yudhishthir and the twins ran over to their brother and embraced him. The four Pandavas then sat down on the mountain top. Looking around at the celestial region, Yudhishthir said reprovingly, O son of Kunti, there is no excuse for your actions here. One should never offend the king or the gods. We are living in Kuvera's domain, and you have surely given him offense by your rashness. Such behavior is as unworthy of you as untruth is of the ascetics. If you have any regard for me, then do not commit such acts again. Bhima looked down in shame. It pained him to see his brother so upset. Yudhishthir pondered what to do. Kuvera was the powerful lord of the Yakshas and a universal guardian. If he had taken offense, then their position would be precarious indeed. They could not avoid the all knowing God, and there was no question of facing him in battle. Better that they try to pacify him in some way. No doubt he would make his appearance to survey the damage. The four Pandavas sat in silence, looking themselves like gods descended to the mountain summit. In the meantime, the defeated Yaksha and Rakshasa soldiers had run to Kuvera and informed him of what had occurred. Hearing that his commander and friend Maniman had been killed, along with numerous other fighters, the god became angry. He then ordered his attendants to yoke his chariot. Kuvera's servants immediately fetched his chariot, drawn by 100 horses, the color of dark clouds, each adorned with golden garlands and gems. The horses neighed loudly and moved their heads upwards at the divine Kuvera as the divine Kuvera ascended the chariot, eulogized by Gandharvas and Charanas. 1,000 principal yakshas, looking like so many mountains, wearing gold armor and equipped with weapons, followed Kuvera as his chariot moved off through the skies. The celestial chariot seemed to swallow up the atmosphere and draw down the sky. It seemed to swallow up the atmosphere and draw down the sky as it ranged across the firmament. As he traveled, the Lord of Wealth pondered Bhima's second assault on the celestials. How dared this human act so insolently toward the gods? But Bhima, of course, was no ordinary human. He was Yudhishthir's brother, and Yudhishthir was Dharmaraj himself. He and his brothers had all taken birth only to fulfill the god's purpose. Kuvera then recalled a curse uttered long ago by the powerful rishi Agastya. Of course, how else could the mighty Maniman have been killed? Bhima had become the instrument of Agastya's imprecation. Kuvera's frown changed to a smile as he approached the summit where the Pandavas were seated. The Pandavas saw the celestial chariot approach. Their hair stood on end, and they rose quickly with folded palms to greet Kuvera. The chariot stayed in the air near the Pandavas, who stood looking apprehensively upward. The Yakshas who accompanied Kuvera alighted on the mountain summit like so many great birds. Seeing the brothers looking across at him with reverence, Kuvera was pleased. The Yaksha warriors saw Kuvera's mood and stood with indifference, their weapons lowered. The four brothers approached Kuvera and bowed before him. Thousands of Rakshasas with huge bodily structures and ears like javelins then approached and surrounded Kuvera. Kuvera appeared like a fresh youth. He wore a chaplet and garlands of celestial flowers. In his hands he held a noose and a sword. A large bow hung over his shoulder. Bhima, still clutching his mace, gazed at him without fear. Kuvera smiled at him. Then he turned to Yudhishthir and said, O Partha, Partha means son of Pritha. So it can be Arjun, it can be any of the Pandavas. O Partha, we are well aware that you are always thinking of the welfare of all creatures. Therefore, dwell on this mountain peak without fear. Nor should you be angry toward Bhimsen. His killing of the Yakshas and Rakshasas has been ordained by destiny. Indeed, realizing this, I have become pleased with Bhima rather than angry. Kuvera looked at Bhima and said with a smile, O child, O best of the Kurus, I am not angry with you. Put down your weapons. For Draupadi's pleasure, you have acted rashly and disregarded the gods, relying only on the strength of your arms. Nevertheless, I am pleased with you. Today you have delivered me from Agastya's terrible curse. That you should insult me in this way was foreordained. Therefore, I attach no blame to you. Yudhishthir's curiosity was aroused as he asked to explain the curse. I am surprised that having angered the glorious Agastya, you were not immediately burned to ashes. Kuvera told Yudhishthir how he had once been traveling through the skies toward Kushavati, where an assembly of the gods was to take place. Hundreds of thousands of yakshas accompanied him, headed by Maniman. As they crossed the Yamuna river, they saw the effulgent Agastya sitting on its banks practicing asceticism. Out of sheer arrogance and foolishness, Maniman spat on his head. Kuvera immediately went before the rishi to apologize. But Agastya was burning with anger and uttered a curse. Since this evil minded one has insulted me in your presence, he will meet with his end along with his forces at the hands of a man. You shall be grieved by this, but you will be absolved of the sin when you see that man. Kuvera said that having seen Bhima, he was now free from Agastya's curse. He invited Yudhishthir to remain for some days in his abode on the mountain summit, and he gave the Pandavas news of Arjun in heaven, saying that he would soon be returning. Turning again to Bhima, he said, O Yudhishthir, you should ensure that this brother of yours does not give way to rashness too often. If you do not check his impetuosity, it will sooner or later bring you trouble. Bhima lowered his weapons and bowed before Kuvera, who then blessed him. May you destroy the pride of your enemies and enhance the joy of your friends. Kuvera took his leave from the Pandavas as his chariot carried him high into the sky. His Yaksha and Rakshasa attendants followed him, some flying and others riding conveyances covered with finely embroidered cushions and adorned with gems. The bodies of the warriors Bhim had slain were removed, and the five brothers stayed on the mountain top, served and honored by the Yakshas. So we stop there today. Tomorrow we'll read chapter 29, Arjun returns. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Hare Krishna.